Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Calling to order the work session meeting of March the 26th, 2024. It is now 5:15 p.m. and I will call the roll. Commissioner Rutledge.
Here.
Commissioner Chismar.
Here.
Commissioner Taylor.
Here.
Commissioner Chance.
Here.
And I am present, so we have a full roll call tonight. First on our agenda is the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the agenda.
All right, and is there a motion to amend the agenda? Mr. Hopkins, would you like to address that?
If I could, please. I'd like to remove, Madam Chair, 7C from the agenda tonight. I didn't make it within the 24-hour notification period, so we want to remove it. We'll bring it up in another session.
All right, it not being an emergency, let's discuss the parking on Franklin at Broadway. Do I have a motion to amend the agenda?
So moved.
Whoops, sorry about that.
All right, and a second.
Second.
All right, all in favor of approval of the agenda as amended? Mr. Krantz.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. To approve tonight's agenda, Commissioner Rutledge,
Aye.
Commissioner Chismar,
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor,
Aye.
Commissioner Chance,
Aye.
and Chair Edding.
Aye.
The agenda is approved.
Thank you, Mr. Krantz. Next, our tentative agenda for the town meeting on Monday, April the 1st, which will be at 7 p.m. here in Town Hall. First, we will have a presentation, a proclamation for the Bel Air Kite Festival Day. Mr. Krantz.
Yep, it's sneaking right up on us, coming up here on April 13th. Everybody cross their fingers for good weather, and we will bring forth a recommendation to declare April 13th Kite Day in the town of Bel Air.
All right. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Krantz? Comments? I know it means spring will be here, so that's a good thing. All right. Next, under new business, we will have Resolution 1227-24, the Town Administrator's Fiscal Year 2025 Budget. Mr. Hopkins.
Yes, ma'am. Since this is Easter, I'm really hoping the Lord rises and he brings the budget with him, and it's all good news. But no, actually, Lisa and I continue to work on it. This was going to be a little bit of a horse race for us as opposed to prior budgets. Lisa is really drilling down, and a number of data points that we needed didn't come in until really, really late in the game, which makes this April 1st deadline difficult. Last year, if you recall, we introduced it on April the 14th, so we had a little bit of wiggle room. But April 1st, April Fool's Day, we will have it ready for you in some shape or form for some forward report to you that night. No, I'm serious. I'm just joking. We will have the document ready for you, but we are down to the wire, C&I, over the next couple of days, dotting the I's, crossing the T's, hoping there's more pluses than minuses.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Hopkins? Good luck. I know it's a tough budget year. Next, we have the contract to design a storefront enclosure of the parking garage stairwell. Mr. Klein?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The parking garage stairwell, mainly on the Pennsylvania Avenue side, really is susceptible to weather. And on 2 occasions, I've already replaced the entire stairwell, the whole metal stairwell, and painted it on numerous occasions. I was at Johns Hopkins with my daughter, and I noticed that they had a really nice enclosure on their stairwell that I thought, you know what, we should probably look into having that done too, to prevent the weather from, causing so much trouble and rust and so forth to the stairwell. So I would like to design a storefront enclosure to enclose it to keep the weather off of it. You know, in the long run, I really think that will benefit us by saving us a lot of money moving forward. So I've like to piggyback on a Harford County design and engineering contract with Frederick Ward Associates. Frederick Ward has a contract with Harford County for this type of designing and engineering, and I'd like to piggyback on their hourly rates. So their engineer, their main architect and everything has an hourly rate. I've asked them to put together a proposal. The proposal came to $51,400. So I'd like for your approval to approve that contract, design it, and then hopefully we will be able to put a storefront on it in the near future. One item that everyone must remember is that the county does pay 67.2% of that 51,400, so that would be 34,540 from Hartford County on that project.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
Is this money just the design money?
Yes.
Okay.
It is just a design, and the design will include a cost estimate.
Okay.
So therefore, we can then reach out to our folks with Hartford County and say, this is how much the project's going to cost. Can you fund this in a budget or a mid-year budget? And we'd like to proceed with the project. And again, at that point in time, they would pay the 2/3 and we would pay the 1/3 for that project.
And what's the cost of replacing those metal stairs?
You know, I look back and I couldn't really find it because both times they were part of a larger scheme project, you know,
Okay.
where we did a whole bunch of work and I really couldn't itemize it out. But I really truly believe it was over $50,000.
Each time?
Yeah, yep.
And we've done it twice, like in how many years? Like twice in 10 years?
Well, I know it's been 20 years, but,
Okay.
you know, probably
Gotcha.
10 and 10, about that years ago. And like I said, we paint it like every 3 to 5 years because the rust starts getting on the metal already, and as soon as it happens, it deteriorates really quickly.
Got
And
it.
those metal pans will rust out.
Thank you.
Yep.
Madam Chair, as an aside, that's, of all the complaints, that's one of the number one facilities that we get multiple complaints from a year, both stairwells, if you will, and we get compliments when we're able to repair them quickly. So it's definitely neat. We've had near slips and trips and falls a number of times throughout the year.
And it'll protect the people from the weather too, because I've been to Hopkins and I
Yep.
know what their stairwell looks like.
And another benefit from this too, it will relieve my guys from shoveling the steps and also putting the salt and the other stuff on the ice on the steps, which also contributes to the corrosion of the metal. So that'll also help the time that we spend doing it, as well as the extra corrosion caused by the ice melts.
So we're talking like value engineering here. We're going to spend some money here to save some money on some
Absolutely.
other
In the long
areas.
run, we should really save a lot of money. And my plan is to do the Pennsylvania Avenue side first, see how it goes, because that is the actual side that gets all the weather. The one on the Cortlandt Street side, I've never replaced, and it's just starting now to have some treads wear out and things of that nature. So if this goes good, and Hartford County's happy with it, and we could find some money in the parking fund, I think it would be who of us to do both at the same time or maybe a year after on the Cortlandt Street side.
And do we need to get the county to approve this $51,400 in advance that they're going to pay the 2/3 of?
They already have.
They already have?
We-
Okay.
We put this in the budget last year, and Lisa reached out, I believe, and discussed the budget with Hartford County, and they approved it at that time.
Okay.
Now, there is one small problem, and that was that we only budgeted $45,000. So we are a little short from 45 to 51, but Lisa has assured me that she could find that extra money in the parking fund to handle it. Right, Lisa?
Magic.
All right. Well, thank you. That was all the questions I had. Anyone else have any questions?
Do we have an idea of what it will look like? Just sort of ballpark, you know,
Yeah,
when we
yeah.
send
Basically,
it
it's going to look like a storefront.
Okay.
I don't know if you know what the Armory garages look like. With
Sure.
Like the tinted black windows
Sure.
and the black. So that'll be similar to that. I think the windows will be not as black. It'll be more clear that you can see out.
Okay.
You know, and so forth like that. And basically, it'll be on the inside of there's a brick circular thing that the stairwell sits back into. And it'll just basically cover that area.
That's great. I know that that's an area that is, you know, targeted for some beautification, so.
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure that that's in line with that, and that sounds like a,
So,
you know.
so
makes
moving
sense.
on in the future, during the process of the design, we'll get a concept of the way it's gonna look. And then I'll share that with you, and, you know, we could say nay, or, yeah, that looks great, you know, or if it's really turning us off, you know, we could say, let's try head in a different direction. Yep.
So, Mr. Klein, will we be, excuse me, will we be replacing the steps, or do the steps need to be repaired on Pennsylvania Avenue side? Are they
I don't
deteriorating?
think so. I'd actually put in to paint them next year.
Okay.
And I think we'll be able to salvage what we have now, because it's not in bad condition. But I think if we paint them one more time and put the storefront, I think we'll be in great shape.
Okay.
And we won't have to replace them again.
So the main goal of that is to really keep the weather off.
Absolutely. You know, if we keep
but
that
if-
snow and ice off of it, you know, we won't have to put the salt down to keep them safe.
Any other goals of the project, like to improve footing or anything like that need to be done?
No, because it's really just the metal that deteriorates as a result of the rust. You know, the treads hang in there. The treads usually start failing when the rust, you know,
Right.
you get that problem when you get the rust and concrete going together.
And
Spalling.
Lighting, lighting and all that is still adequate?
Yes.
Okay.
We recently, with a project we did with Johnson Controls probably 3 or 4 years ago, probably 4 years now, we replaced all the fixtures with LED fixtures.
Okay.
So that's fairly new.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
The only other thing that did come to mind where you were talking about the tint on the windows is and I would defer to you and the chief to figure this out, but I'm thinking if it's too dark, it's nice to be able to see in there
Yeah.
to see what's going on.
Absolutely.
So if it's completely enclosed, I wouldn't want the windows to be too dark.
Yeah.
Surveillance cameras are in
Yeah.
there. Surveillance cameras are in there, I believe.
Are they?
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Yes,
great.
ma'am.
All right, next we have the staffing update. Mr. Krantz?
Yep, thank you. We actually, the labor position that was posted just came down, so we have a pool of applicants, and I'll get with Mr. Klein and Deputy Director Dawson and see if we need to repost that, but so far I know there's some interviews scheduled on the horizon. We do have some good news in that we've identified a candidate for the part-time network technician specialist, so that person is going through background checking. They'll be able to start shortly. We're really lucked out. I know it's been, we're really hoping to find another person to replace Mr. White, which was very big shoes to fill.
Very
And
big.
he's been our network technician for over a decade. So this person is also a retired network professional who is seeking part-time work and lives locally. So it's just like the planets align. We've got a good candidate there. I think we've also identified a procurement, part-time procurement specialist, and looking forward to that person. We'll be offering the job to them here shortly and doing the background checking there as well, too. And I think that's about it at the moment.
Well, that's great, because I really did think that those two positions were going to be really tricky to fill, the two part-time jobs. And it sounds like you've got, I don't know anything about the procurement person, but the IT person, it's just, you know, a stroke. It is the Easter miracle. You got it. So.
We are really lucky. We are really lucky.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Krantz?
Were we also looking for someone in the planning department? Or that's
Oh.
not?
He's coming back to work April 1st.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
great.
Terrific. All right. Calendar items. I know we're distributed a calendar. I haven't really had a chance to look at it, but if anybody finds anything missing or feels it's an error, if you let Mr. Krantz or Ruth know, they will take care of that. The only thing I know for calendar purposes is April 1st, we will be here in Town Hall at 7 PM for our usual meeting. And the date to RSVP for the MML Summer Conference, the early bird pricing, I believe that's due about April the 2nd or somewhere around there. April 2nd there, I'm getting a nod. April 3rd, okay. Well, then I'll just say 2nd so everybody can, so that we can get the benefit of the early bird pricing. And there was one other thing. Oh, I think all the RSVPs are due to the Fire Awards dinner, maybe April 6th. Though. If you haven't responded, put it on your to-do list. Anybody else have any calendar items? No? All right. Miscellaneous. A, discuss the amendments to the Bel Air Town Code, Chapter 246, Historic Preservation, Section 246-9, Appeals. Mr. Small.
Yes, there was a request to review how the appeals from the HPC are taken. And right now, the town board, or I'm sorry, the town code refers any appeal from the Historic Preservation Commission to the Board of Appeals. When you look at the state code, it's unclear, I guess is a good way to put it. But the other two boards, the Board of Appeals and the Planning Commission, both get appealed to circuit court. And that is where it's kind of the logical place for an appeal from Historic Preservation Commission would go. There are several places in the code that have to get amended. One is in the Chapter 246, which is the Historic Preservation chapter, and then another is in the Development Regulations. So those are identified. I sent you like a real sketchy version of what would be reviewed or revised. And there, I think there are probably going to be some adjustments that will need to be made, or at least we'll have to make sure that we are recording the Historic Preservation Commission's, audio recording those proceedings, because if it does go to circuit court,
Right.
we would need a record.
And I know that our code says the appeal is to the Board of Appeals, but the state law section says that the appeal from the Historic Preservation Commission is to be made in the same manner as the Board of Appeals.
Same manner
Appeal.
as Planning Commission.
That's
yeah.
the Planning Commission, I'm sorry.
And then there's
Planning
editor's
Commission.
notes down below that really make it
Right.
kind of confusing.
Right, because they never adopted the notes. So the legislature has spoken and said the appeals to the circuit court, even though they said it by saying it's the same way as the Planning Commission, so it's a little convoluted. But-
It is, but it is not unusual for HPC, and I'm saying this generally, HPCs to be appealed to the Board of Appeals, because that's the way it had been done for so many years.
Right,
And then they amended it, excuse me, when they adopted Article 66B, is now codified as a land use article. So they kind of changed it to Planning Commission. But unfortunately, when you have a system in place, and I'm saying this globally, not just with the town of Bel Air, when you have a system in place for years, it's very hard to change. I did provide you guys with sort of a breakdown on the process with respect to the petition for judicial review under 7201. And then there's also a very short, sweet, what it does for the Board of Appeals. Either way, it doesn't matter. The court has never chimed in on this, ever. So, kind of one of those like question marks. So there's no wrong answer. There's no right answer. So if you guys want to make it the circuit court, make it the circuit court, certainly.
I thought it was pretty clear, actually, that the state code said it has to be appealed the same way as the Planning Commission is appealed.
Correct, but if you go back, you're correct.
Okay.
You're absolutely correct, 'cause I've double-checked this. I
Mhm.
didn't understand where the ambiguity did when I was doing a lot more digging. It used to say the zoning board, or, zoning commission. Instead of saying planning commission, it said zoning board or zoning commission. That made it kind of open-ended. That could be planning commission, that could be Board of Appeals, that could be whatever. And then when they did the amendments and they adopted it, they changed it to planning commission. But for whatever reason, that review board for land use comment is still there. That says we are asking for the General Assembly to clarify, is it Board of Appeals, it's circuit court. So if you fixed it, why is it still there? I never went so far into depth on that legislative history. I just didn't want to spend the time and the money.
I don't blame you.
Yeah, so, obviously, there's no problem in changing it to the circuit court for Harford County if you so choose.
Right, so it's, like I said, that process it works for me. We are gonna take it in front, this legislation in front of the HPC, which meets this Thursday, and then in front of the Planning Commission, which meets, I don't know if I can get it on the agenda, it depends on what you guys tell me tonight, but they meet next Thursday, so,
Right, April 4th, is it?
Yes.
April 4th.
April.
So I think we could probably add it to their agenda, and I don't think that would be a big deal. And then you could codify it whenever it would suit you.
Yeah, I don't see it as a big deal. I just see it as the code needs to give direction to the citizens the same way that the state law says. I know that there's that note in there, but the legislature never went back and said it can be to the circuit court or to the Board of Appeals. They left it as it has to be appealed in the same way as the decision of the Planning Commission, which is to the circuit court. So I think we should make everything point in the same direction for people.
And in the other municipalities, excuse me, who continue to do the Board of Appeals sort of defense, if you would, I think the reason why is because if you look at the process for filing and the expense involved in filing in circuit court, it may look, oh, that's no big deal, it has to be $165. Well, when you start getting a lawyer involved in briefs and this and that and the record and the
Right.
transcript, it can be very onerous. At first, when he told me it was $300 to file an application, the board was like, ooh, that's more expensive. But then if you think about it, you file the application, you pay the $300, you get a hearing before the Board of Appeals in a month. So again, no spin, I just wanted to kind of
Yeah.
throw that out there as
Yeah.
educational, you know.
And that's my concern, is that most of the things that the HPC deals with is going to be homeowners.
Exactly.
I mean, it's not the large projects, unfortunately, type of thing, and then forcing them if they disagree with that. I mean, if you're building a home and you disagree with that, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Small, you're the approval of a home design, right? If somebody has an empty lot, it doesn't go before the planning commission, does it not?
No.
Okay, so
But
as
if
the
it's-
zoning administrator, you would approve that,
Zoning
correct?
administrator would go to the Board of Appeals.
And then it would go to the Board of Appeals. So it just seems like, okay, a decision on the HPC, which is mainly only exterior, I mean, that's all they deal with.
Oh, well, they deal with the credits, they deal with.
The tax credits, right.
distribution. If someone
Right.
wants to put it in the program, they have to approve it. And if they said no to either of that, then, yeah, it would be a petition for
Right.
judicial review if we changed it.
Right, so it is mainly, I'm just saying, it's mainly homeowners that we're dealing with here and have to go to and have to go to circuit court to get
Which is,
to appeal a ruling seems kind of costly.
It
And
is
It's a big
costly.
step, and I know, and
And
I
it-
understand what the law is saying, I'm just, if that's what the law is saying, well, I don't understand what the law, you're telling me what the law says. And all that, it seems like a big step to take for the homeowners to do.
I don't disagree with that. The problem is that if the state law says it has to be done this way, and we tell residents, do it this way, then they may have lost some rights because they haven't done it in a timely fashion to the correct place. Plus, we have the state law saying go in one direction and the town code saying go in another direction,
Right.
which is never a good idea. I mean,
No, I agree.
I
That's
mean, if
just-
I'm looking at it from a reservation of rights, perspective, not that, no disrespect intended. The citizens' rights are not my problem, I protect the town. So if they blew a statute, I'm gonna be like, awesome, my job is done, right?
Right.
So, but at the same time, to be fair and have the rules being fair, I agree with you. Because if they go to the Board of Appeals and they shouldn't have gone to the Board of Appeals and they blow the 30-day deadline, it's
Mhm.
over with, it's done.
Right.
and that has been my concern, because your job is to protect the town, but our job is to represent the
Exactly.
residents, and
And if we get it wrong,
I don't
right?
want to give them bad information and
Yeah.
have them suffer for it. It would be better if the legislature would go and change the state law, but they have not shown any interest in that, because there are those notes, they just haven't done anything.
Correct, but what is really clear is the state law does not take Board of Appeals at this time, it says planning commission.
Right.
So I think it is safe for to say circuit court, and I agree with you, at the same time, it is onerous.
Yes,
It
Yeah.
really is.
yes, I agree with Commissioner
One thing to
Chisholm as well.
remember here is that since I've been here, and even prior to that, we've never had an appeal.
Low
That was
risk.
my
Because
next
they-
question.
Low risk.
Yeah.
Commissioner Rutledge will notice that the HPC really works with, especially homeowners, when they come through the door. They don't want to have somebody have to do something that is burdensome.
Right.
Yeah, I would just note that in my short tenure observing it, it's a very collaborative effort. They're very understanding. The commission works to really help guide a homeowner to resources where they could get independent advice, independent from the commission, and without and the staff member is always
Right.
very helpful. It's not a place where they try to cut people off, at the knees. It's a good, robust discussion, that takes
Right.
place. So, but that having been said, I agree with the chair here that I've looked at the statute myself, and I'd rather line up with the statutory language and not rely on the notes, and I think we just need to do that. Certainly, I agree that what is the rationale, on that? And I think that clearly, like what I've seen from the HPC to date, you got people on there with a tremendous amount of expertise. There is a lot of special expertise weighing in on some of these considerations. Particularly, there's one right now that's been back and forth on a set of doors, and it can, and I can see where it would make sense to just make it a one-shot appeal to the circuit court, defer to the expertise of the agency on the administrative review, rather than a two-layer appeal that could ultimately end up at circuit court after you go through the Board of Appeals. So I can see some rationale if I were trying to put myself in the shoes of the members of the General Assembly, that, we're in favor of trying to line it up with the Planning Commission, thinking, well, you've got a lot of expertise on the Planning Commission, you've got a lot of expertise at the Historic, Commission as well.
Yes, since I've been here, really the issues that have arisen have not been homeowners. They have been the commercial entities that have a tenant that does something they're not supposed to. And everybody will remember Main Street Oyster House and what happened with all of that. So that was, it's those kind of issues. Typically, if it is a commercial interest, and in the case I think you're referring to, it's a institutional interest.
Yes.
They have a little bit more resources to pursue an appeal if they want to.
My rationale is, it's been noted that the courts have not weighed in on this issue. I'd like to keep it that way. The last thing I want is for some poor homeowner to find themselves in the middle of a landmark decision that resolves this question mark. And so, to that end, I think it's best that we point our arrow in the same direction as the state.
So I'll have this available for everyone here in a couple of days after we finalize.
Thank you. All right.
Okay.
Next, we have the amendments to the Bel Air Town Code, Chapter 10, Boards, Commissions, and Committees, Article 5, Committee on the Elderly and Needy Citizens. Mr. Krantz or Commissioner Chance?
I am the commissioner that works with that committee, and they have expressed their request to change the name of the committee. And although I'm bringing that to you this evening, I think it's still up for a little bit of negotiation and discussion. We will meet again tomorrow morning, but the latest that we had discussed, or that has been discussed, was the Livability Committee for the Elderly and Needy. And why they really looked at the word livability was that they were wanting to make sure that they're reaching to a senior community that isn't necessarily the senior who is thinking about going into a nursing home or has the need to live at home and have assistance at home, but the senior that is more active and wanting to be more involved in the community, the walkability of Bel Air, all of that as part of their senior life. So the livability part is what came into that discussion. We are still trying, I think, at this point to decide what to do about that name. And so I will be back with more after this meeting tomorrow. However, one of the things that they definitely wanted to do was to change the number of the minimum number of members from 5 to 9. And we have one person who has been on the board who wanted to re-up, but I have 2 new members who are interested in attending. And so we definitely know that minimum number of 5 they really would love to have it be 9 instead of 5. So that I don't see changing when I come back to you again. But I'm certainly open to hearing your thoughts on the name change and your discussion on that.
Commissioner Chance, is it Is it a minimum of 9 that we want to make, or is it just,
It's,
is it
that, the,
it says minimum of 9,
it had
right?
been a minimum
Of
of
five.
5, and so a minimum of 9 is what they're saying. I think that they
I mean,
would
why
be,
can't we just have a max, or is there a max?
there's no max at
There's no
this time.
max.
We can make a max of 9 if that's what you feel more comfortable with.
Well, I was just thinking, if you keep a low minimum, and you still have, you'd have a range, that, you know, if we don't meet the minimum, what are we saying? We don't have a forum, or we don't have,
That was going to be my question.
you know, so it's like, if you keep a low minimum, then you can have a high maximum, that's fine. You know, if we only have 5 people, there's only 5 on the commission now?
There's only 5 on the commission
On the
as we
commission
speak.
now, right.
We have a number of people that attend these meetings for, you know, and supply input. But certainly, I think that's a reasonable request, that we have a minimum of 5 and a maximum of 9. That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if there isn't a maximum now, there's nothing.
There is no maximum now.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
All right, so I guess the consideration of the name will continue.
I'm open to
a
hear
little bit.
any other suggestions. Jake has mentioned that he thought perhaps using the title of citizen welfare is possible. I think that this committee has really targeted seniors in particular, and then the senior who is in need of extra assistance is where it's been in the past. So I feel that my gut feeling is citizen welfare is going to be too broad for them, but I'm certainly going to bring that to their attention tomorrow and let them hash that out. Any other suggestions? I would be happy to take.
Yes, I like the livability. I can see that. I think it's very, very positive, and I like that theme, you know, very much. I was wondering whether the term elderly is just, maybe there's another term that can strike today's lingo a little better with without having any I don't know, just
I hear you.
elderly sounds
Being-
like an old word.
It does, and that's how I feel about it, since I am elderly. I really don't like being referred to as, "Oh, Mary, you're elderly." However, the livability piece feels a lot more like what this committee is trying to do, to reach out to the community and say, we have all of these things that are available to you to enjoy and be part of. And so that livability piece, I think, feels helpful. I'm not big on the elderly word either.
Well, if livability is a key
word.
issue here, you could also, again, this might be too broad, but you could also do the Committee on Citizen Livability. You know, my just friendly advice, and they can, you know, choose to take it or not, is I think when you're coming up with names for things like this, it is a little bit better to go broad, and then let the folks that are actually seated, you know, do the work that advances that mission. I like the word livability. You know, the town, every other committee that the town has is, you know, aimed at advancing, you know, living the best life that all citizens of the town can have. You know, so appearance and beautification, economic community development, you know, it's sort of a holistic approach to the town. And I think that, you know, maybe a title like the Committee on Citizen Livability would allow them to focus on those groups of citizens who do require more support when it comes to, you know, livability, but still keep the general outlook that, okay, how do we make the community as a whole more vibrant, more integrated, better? So those are just my thoughts, and, you know, feel free to pass those
Sure,
along.
I will,
You know, ultimately, it's their recommendation to us, so.
yeah.
And certainly, I put a lot of stock in whatever they recommend, but as I recall, part of what kicked off the name change was nobody wants to be elderly or needy,
Yeah.
or worse, be both.
Yeah.
So, that was like an off-putting name. Nobody wanted to see themselves as that. So I don't know what they'll come up with, but
Yeah, I don't know either. I know that, a number of the people that serve on this committee work with Healthy Hartford, the Upper Chesapeake, the Health Department, a lot of nonprofit entities that really do have a lot of contact with people who have some needs. And so how to balance that is the tough part. So
you have a
They-
really great committee with some really stellar backgrounds for this work.
Yeah, it's a good group. I'm happy to say that we meet in the community room, I just lost that. The community room, and the table is filled with people who are interested and really want to be involved. So I'm happy about that, and so I will take your thoughts back, and I have to agree about the elderly word.
I know, I just did a
Thank you.
lookup for synonyms for elderly.
Okay.
Not too
And-
ancient. was one.
Ancient.
No.
Thank
How
you.
about- How about no spring chicken? I'm like, okay, I don't think
I
they
think
fit.
you can stop now.
I was trying there.
Somebody
Thanks, I
somebody take his own away.
I appreciate the effort, but
Thanks,
but no
Steve, I
thanks.
don't know if
Maybe
it
we
was
want
on there.
antonyms.
Well, I fit in that category too, so anyway, it's just,
Senatorial is my favorite.
Right,
I think that's the best
senatorial.
one. Yep.
they did have experience, they did have seasoned in there, there was
Seasoned,
other
I like
names, but,
seasoned.
Yeah.
The root of that word is the Latin senex, which is where we get the word senate. That's
Okay.
where that comes from. So keep that in mind.
All right.
Much better. All
I'm going to
right.
go with awesome.
There we go.
That's a good one. I like that.
That'll work.
Covers everything. All right. Commissioners' comments. Any comments from any of the commissioners?
Madam Chair, I would just like to, I'm sure, share everybody's heartfelt sympathy for the families that are suffering in this great loss with the Francis Scott Key Bridge. I know it's foremost on everyone's mind and reminds us how important, how brief life can be, and how unexpected things, come up no matter how well we plan, but also just the appreciation for our first responders pulling together across the region was very heartwarming, and for me to see that in this extremely difficult time. And my prayers are with the families that are still worrying and wondering, what has happened to their loved one as the mission goes forward to rescue and recover.
It was certainly a major loss for the whole Baltimore community. I mean, just to lose that in our skyline, but then also the impact that it will have on those who depend on the Port of Baltimore for their livelihood and their providing for their families, and it will have ripple effects for the whole community. So, and Bel Air included, that we probably can't foresee, and that will continue on for a while. So certainly, my thoughts and prayers are with really the entirety of the state of Maryland that has just suffered a huge loss. I also did want to provide a brief update to the board and to staff who are interested about House Bill 538, which is the governor's housing bill. It was reported out favorable with amendments from the House Environment and Transportation Committee. It was significantly amended. The amendments are now available. If you go on the Maryland General Assembly website and scroll down to the bill history, the amendments were adopted on the floor of the House today, and they'll be debating it tomorrow. So keep an eye on that. We've got 2 weeks left of the legislative session. It still has to make it out of the House and then be heard all over again in the Senate. So it's by no means a done deal, because this is after crossover, and it's still an original chamber bill that is yet to proceed to the opposite chamber. But it's got legs on it. It is more moderate than its initial posture. The biggest thing is that any reference to saying what municipalities can and can't do with adequate public facilities laws have been removed. The bill no longer references them. It's now silent on them. Adequate public facilities laws will return to as they are if the bill is passed. They'll be the same. But there are still many other, sort of smaller moderating things, like, for instance, the rail station provision, which didn't necessarily affect us, but affects a lot of Harford County, particularly our friends in Havre de Grace, that has been changed from a mile to 3/4 of a mile. So, everywhere else, they took the APF provision entirely out. Everywhere else, there was just sort of, I would call it, nibbling around the edges. So definitely, if you've got a nice hot cup of tea or whatever your poison of choice is when reading legislation, get that together and read that tonight, because we've got 2 weeks left until it might become law.
That's right. You didn't bring that up in the staff or the administrator's report.
Mr. Hopkins, did I miss the town administrator's report?
Yes, ma'am, you did.
Maybe we'll go back.
If you'd like.
I'm sorry, you should have
Sure.
No, I
flagged me
actually
on
was-
that.
I was going to send you an email in about
That's
15
okay.
minutes. That's okay. There's really only two things that I had on my report. Actually, my staff addressed most of them. In reference to the incident at the Key Bridge, we have offered our support as a town through MEMAC, Maryland Emergency Management Assistance Compact. Our point of contact is Linda Ploner at DES. So we are on record up there that if they need resources, either in law enforcement or DPW, they can certainly call on us, and we can provide what it is they may need from us if, in fact, we have it. I don't see that as an immediate need. I see that more longer in the recovery process when people are starting to exhaust out and they might need some replacement or people. And then second, we were notified, this really was going to be an email, but since I have everyone here, we did get approval from the Greater Bel Air Community Foundation. They gave us a grant to purchase our holiday Christmas tree. They have a check for us, and unfortunately, I'm not available on Friday, but they were hoping to have at least one commissioner and maybe someone from my staff, either Mr. Krantz or possibly Mr. Klein, just be here for a quick 5-minute photo op.
And what time would that be?
Actually, I talked to them yesterday. I wasn't sure of everyone's schedule, and I didn't have a time. I'd have to go back through, email them real quick and find out. But anyway, they were very happy to provide that for us. I thank them for that contribution at their last meeting, and they just wanted to do a photo op.
And it's this Friday, the 29th?
They were hoping to do it this Friday if they can. If no one
I
is.
can do it
Can
this
you?
Friday if you
Okay.
just let me know what
Will
time.
do. They are willing to push it out later if for any reason, because they knew Easter weekend, people might be traveling, so. Joe Eiler from Tar Heel Construction and 2 other members of the committee would be here to present. And of course, Mr. Chance is a member of that committee if you would like to be here. I didn't know if that'd be a conflict for you or not.
I felt like it was a conflict.
Okay. Okay.
And certainly anybody else is welcome to
Yes,
be
ma'am.
there, but I happen to know that Friday I will be here, and I don't think I have anything on my schedule, so
Sure. And
there you go.
from a matter of planning too, Madam Chair, I'll get Mr. Anderson to move the 150 banner out here to the lobby so that we have the 150 as a backdrop for the photo. Thank you, ma'am. That's all I had.
Anything else from any of the commissioners?
I'm sorry, I had one other thing, is that the artwork that was put forth as part of Hartford 250 is going to be permanently posted down at Bynum Pond.
Oh, that's neat.
It's, right now, it's sitting in Laura's office, and, but I was very impressed with the quality of work that they did, so.
Great.
If I could just add to Kevin's remarks, I attended the Hartford 250 closing event on Saturday where that artwork was unveiled. I worked on the committee for the steering committee and for the closing ceremony, and of course, as former Arts and Entertainment District Manager, was part of the selection process for that artwork. It is 4 panels that community members contributed items to, and the artist Lisa Scarbath was able to not only include all but 3 items that were submitted by
Wow.
community members. She also added audio to them, not all the items, but there are stories recorded along with the items that were submitted by community members. And it's really, I agree with Kevin, it's really a remarkable piece. So we're lucky to have it just outside of town limits. So we do think we will sneak it as an asterisk item on our public art tour because it is so close. But it really is impressive, and I encourage you all to take a look once it's installed.
Well, thank you. Anything else? I just wanted to say, Mr. Hopkins stole my thunder because I was going to point out that the town had offered their assistance in the bridge disaster, which is just going to be catastrophic for the area. I mean, for the people involved. I think they're still looking for 6 or 8 people who are missing. It's going to be terrible for traffic and for people in their daily commute, and it's going to be terrible for the economics. The port is a huge destination for cars, new cars, and that is going to really hurt everyone. So we're going to see the ripple effects, I think, for some time. So it's in everybody's best interest to get that thing.
Well, our generalized concern too is knowing the ripple effect and having seen an event like this before is traffic reroutes itself.
Yes, it does.
And the potential for rerouting could bring materials through the town that otherwise don't come through the town, either by a wayward trucker or someone who purposely comes through town to seek a destination shortcut. So the potential is there for us to have more hazardous materials on our highways in town or close to town than we would ever like to have.
Yeah, it's also a concern for the tunnels because
They
if you're an
can't go through the tunnels.
RV or you have
Can't go
propane,
through
you
the
can't go
tunnels,
through the
yeah.
tunnels, but, you
Yeah.
know, what is going to happen is going to be, we'll have to wait and see. Yeah, it's going to be tough. The other thing is, Monday I spoke to Bill Montgomery from Aberdeen, and he, as well as Aberdeen and Havre de Grace, are looking at an international property management code and potentially adopting that. They had a commission, Aberdeen did, that met in the fall and produced a report. He is going to forward to me the summary, the executive summary for that. They're looking at some of the same things that we've noticed in town, some buildings that aren't well maintained, sheds that need to go down, and we'll have to take a look at our code, but I think I didn't even know there was an international property management code. I knew there's a building code, electrical code, but there's one of these as well. And it might be time for us to take a look at that to see what our code has, what it doesn't have, some problems that we're facing. Is our code the way to go, or should we look at something else? So when he forwards it to me, I will share it with everyone. But I think it would be at least worth looking at and talking to the other 2 jurisdictions. I always like to know, what are the other 2 jurisdictions doing? What is the county doing? You know, if we don't need to move in lockstep with everybody else, but on the other hand, if we're going to be different from what they're doing, we should make a conscious decision and do it that way. So I think this is it's time to look at this. And the last thing on my list was I have to thank Dominic and the IT department. I have been having a terrible struggle with my laptop. I felt much better after Dominic could not fix it in 5 minutes or less. And he had to actually take the laptop with him and work on it for a little while. But he says he has fixed it. It was a software problem. And I was just ready to get a hammer to fix it. And I knew that was probably not the right tool. So thank you to them. They're always very, very quick, very helpful. He looked at it and, left it back in the conference room for me in the same day. So it's I know. I was terrified that it was going to be, okay, you didn't click this box or something, right, operator error, but it actually was a software problem that he had to go work on for a little bit, so it's fixed. So, all right, any further business? All right, in that case, having reached the end of our agenda, we stand adjourned.